Humans are the only species that adopts alien children. The skies above the burning colonies were silent. Where once the stars had danced across peaceful nights, now only ash hung heavy in the air. War had consumed the outer sectors, brutal, indifferent, and ancient. The Galactic Accord, once a proud union of over 600 sentient species, was fracturing at the seams. Entire planets had gone dark. Refugee fleets floated without destination. Entire races, their histories, languages, lullabies were vanishing into stardust. And in the wake of that collapse, children remained. Thousands, tens of thousands. Species with translucent skin and ink-blooded veins. Species that bloomed from spores or emerged as stone-skinned toddlers from glowing eggs. Younglings that wept, though no one in the galaxy understood what the sound of their sorrow truly meant. They were orphans now, and no one wanted them. No one except the humans. The Galactic Accord had always regarded Earth as a curious outlier. The humans had arrived late to the stars. They lacked the grandeur of the Mulcahy, the intellect of the Solari, the spiritual elegance of the Irians. Yet they endured, survived, multiplied, and then something stranger happened. When the wars came, humanity fought like anyone else. But when the wars ended, when the dust settled and all that, remained were smoldering ruins and the abandoned cries of the smallest survivors, the humans did something no species in galactic memory had done. They picked the orphans up, and they held them. Sergeant Cam Reyes hadn't expected to end his career running a daycare. The last time he'd held anything soft, it had been a plasma rifle on Epsilon 5 during the breach of the Kari vaults. He'd seen comrades vaporized in atom-wide slits of light. He'd watched cities fall, but now he sat on a cargo crate in the ruined shell of an old observation deck on Station Orpheus, holding a child. A child with feathers instead of hair, black eyes like deep oceans, and a faint hum emanating from her chest when she slept. She couldn't be more than 3 cycles, maybe. Years Cam didn't know. All he knew was that she'd clung to his leg during a rescue sweep of a ghost colony, refusing to let go. The mission log called her Unit D-17. He called her Nova. The Galactic Registry had protested, of course. Human adoption of alien minors violates Article 9 subsection. Cam didn't care. The forms could burn. Let the diplomats talk in circles while kids like Nova starved in forgotten bunkers. While they were busy counting clauses, humanity was building something different. They were building an orphanage. It began as a whisper. A few soldiers, a few orphans. Then came the medics, the engineers, the linguists, all volunteers. No official banner, no military budget, just people who couldn't turn away anymore. Station Orpheus became the first unofficial galactic orphanage. By the second month, it held 42 children from 12 species. By the fifth, 200 from 30 species. And by the end of the first year, it was no longer a secret. The transmission came on a cold night cycle, humming through the cracked speakers in the old control tower. This is Overseer Takal of the Solari Conservancy. We detect unauthorized possession of minor assets belonging to the Galactic Accord. Release custody of the children immediately or face interstellar sanction. Cam stood there, Nova in his arms, her wings curled tight against his chest. He didn't flinch. He pressed the reply button. You're welcome to try. And thus the silence war truly ended, and a new conflict began. A quieter one, not of weapons but of hearts. Because what no alien diplomat had ever understood what made humanity strange, terrifying and beautiful, wasn't their strength, it wasn't their war machines, or their rapid expansion across the stars. It was that they cared for things that weren't theirs. They adopted stray dogs, broken satellites, and old gods. And now, alien children. Cam walked the halls of the makeshift nursery, built from repurposed cargo bays and reactor rooms. Each crib was different. Some floated, some pulsed in rhythm with a heartbeat only their species knew. Some were nests. Some were warm tanks of bioluminescent fluid. But every child slept under the same stars. And over each crib, handwritten in dozens of languages and scripts, glowed a message. You are safe. You are loved. You are home. The second child Cam Reyes named was found in a crater, no larger than a cat. She was curled in the remains of a carbon-wrecked drop pod, clutching a silicate pendant inscribed in a language no one could yet decode. Her skin was like stretched obsidian. Her body temperature dangerously low for human hands, but Cam carried her anyway. Swaddled in heat blankets as alarms screamed overhead, called her Echo, because when she first opened her tiny mouth, all that came out was sound rippled, reverberating sound that bent light and made glass hum. The medics panicked. Station's AI flickered. Cam didn't flinch. He just whispered, "You're safe now." And Echo, the little black lass girl, blinked with eyes of moving stars and stopped screaming. It was never about bloodlines. Cam didn't have kids of his own. Most soldiers didn't. The war took more than time. It took roots. It made people mobile, detached, allergic to permanence. But something in the old sergeant broke the first time he saw a child wrapped in emergency foil, tucked into the crook of a dying Marine's arm. They weren't numbers. They were futures. They were being erased. By month 9, the station was a city. Engineers had arrived to reinforce the substructures. Teachers came next, fluent in tongues, dead before Earth had harnessed electricity. Then the cooks, who spent hours deciphering nutrition data for creatures that fed on sulfur, sound, or dreams. And the stories began to grow. A Vohari sapling who whispered through root signals and only responded to lullabies sung in Swahili. A jelly-bodied twin from Kepler 112F who couldn't speak but projected emotional fractals when hugged. A bruised, half-blind creature found in a derelict mining rig whose species still hadn't been catalogued, but who insisted on being called Ali. Humans didn't care what they were made of. They only cared that they had no one, so they became someone. The galactic backlash was quiet at first. Then came sharper voices. Human interference in species development. Emotional contamination. Violation of custody law under Accord Resolution X-87. But for every diplomat who protested, 10 humans showed up at the orphanage gates, holding out their hands. "I can help. I'm a vet. I've treated avians. Let me see the winged ones. I was a schoolteacher before the war. Can teach them to draw." One man flew all the way from Ceres with nothing but a music box and a dream to teach. Lullabies to every alien child willing to hum along. His name was Amir, and by week 3, Echo was sleeping through the night. Cam remembered standing in the central atrium, watching the sunrise projected across the dome. Nova sat beside him, her feathers fluffed, mimicking his crossed arms. Around them, dozens of children played. Some floated, some crawled on ceilings, some argued in clicks, hisses, or silent vibrations. And some just held hands, no matter how different they looked. The universe hadn't seen peace like this in centuries. It had only ever taken one species to start each war. But maybe, just maybe, it only took one to stop the next. Then came the incident. An inspection team composed of high-ranking members of the Accord and the Solari Judiciary arrived unannounced. Their transport gleamed, lined with banners of extinct worlds, and their eyes scanned like dissecting knives. Cam watched them walk through the nursery with guarded silence. They took notes, recorded footage, whispered in clicks and guttural tones. At the end of the tour, a tall, crystalline diplomat with fractal skin turned to him. "This project is unsustainable," she said. "You are violating cross-cultural containment doctrine." Cam didn't blink. "You see orphans? I see family. They are not yours." He smiled. "Just slightly. They are now." That night, Cam received a message. Anonymous, encrypted, broadcast from deep space. The message said, "We are coming. We want them back." No species name, no coordinates, just the threat. Whoever it was, they didn't want an orphanage. They wanted control. They were willing to kill to reclaim it. The alarms rang the next day. Vessel breached Station Orpheus security perimeter. Unmarked, fast, silent, no known signature in Accord records. The kind of ship you only see in war zones and only ever once. Cam rallied his old squad. He dusted off the rifle, but the kids saw him. Nova looked up with wide, iridescent eyes. "Home?" she asked, her tiny voice unsure. Cam hesitated. Then he knelt. "No one's taking you. Not today. Not ever." What came next wasn't a battle. It was a message to the galaxy. Station Orpheus activated the Human Emergency Defense Net, a repurposed mining rig now laced with military-grade AI and a dozen ex-Marines who refused to leave. The invaders never breached the outer hull. And when the smoke cleared, the humans broadcast a single sentence across every accord frequency: "We will not give them back." That was the moment things changed. Accord members fell silent, not in rage, but in reflection, because despite all their laws, procedures, and species pride, none of them had stepped in to care for the abandoned. Only the humans had. Now the galaxy watched the little blue planet's lost soldiers and scarred nurses hold hands with alien children beneath recycled stars. In a council chamber on Delinary Prime, a motion was raised to recognize the Galactic Orphanage as a sovereign humanitarian entity. And for the first time in Accord history, the vote was unanimous. The ship known as Everkind drifted through the inner clouds of the Dendrax expanse, veiled by radiant ion storms and shimmers of stellar dust. It moved like a ghost, slow and resolute, cutting through radiation and gravitational tremors in the ancient path of lost empires. Inside, the once sterile halls had transformed. Children's drawings lined the corridors, stick figures of humans holding hands with wide-eyed aliens. Clawed creatures smiling next to armor-plated Terrans. Crude crayon depictions of stars, planets, and improbable dream beasts shimmered beneath ultraviolet reading lights. Captain Sarai Locke walked those halls in silence, her boots soft against rubber-tiled floors. Around her, the hum of fusion drives pulsed like a distant heartbeat. She passed a classroom glass walls misted with condensation wear, and a Vori child was teaching her own kind to read human alphabets. Her beak clicked as she patiently traced letters on a touchscreen, and the others mimicked her with fluttering enthusiasm. Sarai lingered a moment longer, then moved on. The transformation was deeper than mere decoration. Everkind had become more than a refugee cruiser. It was no longer a vehicle for survival. It was becoming a womb for something new, a place where a fractured galaxy's youngest outcasts could imagine peace. And in that fragile imagining, the seeds of an unthinkable future had begun to grow. But peace, Sarai knew, never went unchallenged. In the communications bay, Lieutenant Hira stood rigid, her eyes locked on a scrolling transmission feed. Her jaw clenched as she turned toward Sarai. "We've got movement near the Raelian Drift," she said. 4 ships. Black signatures. No beacons. Fast approach. Military vector. Sarai didn't need to ask who. No one else sent ships without a flag anymore. Umbra Corps, Sarai muttered. The private military juggernaut hadn't forgotten Everkind's defiance. Months ago, Sarai had intercepted one of their child-raiding convoys of vessels smuggling cloned Tarsi infants into a bio-augmentation facility. Recording of that operation had gone viral on the Terranet, and for a time, outrage had surged. Outrage fades fast in peacetime. Profit never does. "They know we're here," Sarai said, "and they're coming to take the children back." Hira nodded. 2 hours, maybe less. We won't outgun them. "We're not going to fight them," Sarai said. Hera's brow furrowed. "Then what? We'll show them what it looks like when the galaxy finally has a conscience." She tapped her cum. "Get the kids to the deep core," she ordered. "Lock down all access hatches. Ready the projection array. I want full public transmission on all bands. Let the universe watch this unfold." The ship's heart, known affectionately as the Nest, was a labyrinth of interconnected sleep chambers, day zones, sensory caves, and soft-lit libraries. Hundreds of children furred, scaled, feathered, and smooth-skinned were ushered inward as a team of volunteers calmed them with lullabies and slow-motion holograms. No alarms sounded. No fear was broadcast. What a retreat, not a panic. Among the last to arrive was a child unlike any other. His name was Kira, neither fully human nor fully Yulan. Grown in a hybrid vat by a no-defunct empire, he had human eyes and Yulan bone-weaving abilities. He could grow armor plates from his arms when frightened, but he also cried when stories ended too sadly. He held Mira's hand, his adoptive human caretaker, and looked up at her as the walls sealed. "Are the bad men coming again?" he asked. Mira knelt, brushing his brow.
"They might,"
she said softly. "But we're not alone anymore." In the command chamber, Sarai stood before a massive transparent screen. The Umbra ships emerged from the storm belt's leak, jagged vessels painted obsidian, bristling with charged weapon arrays. They hailed her. Face appeared, hard, angular, half-masked in a metal faceplate. "Commander Varkon." "This is private territory," Sarai said coolly. You have no jurisdiction. You're harboring corporate property, Varkin growled. Genetic assets, unauthorized hybrids, stolen clones. They're children, Sarai replied. They're weapons. They are ours. Varkin smirked. Step aside, or we'll step through you. Sarai nodded to Hira. The live feed began transmitting UA Cross, Toranet, Galacnet, in every public archive. Then Sarai spoke not to the attacker, but to everyone watching. Let the record show, she said, her voice steady, that on this day the last children of dying species stood behind one human ship's shields. Let it be known that we did not draw arms, but we stood. Behind her, the children began singing. One by one, languages layered atop each other. A choir of impossible voices, discordant, raw, beautiful. Lullaby stitched from extinction and second chances. And somewhere across the stars, in war rooms, in farmsteads, in dusty colonies and glittering domes, people paused. They saw the faces, heard the song, and they remembered. Humans had once been monsters, conquerors. The virus of old Earth had spread fast, but they had changed. And now, in the ship called Everkind, they had become something no one else had dared to be. Foster parents of the galaxy. The Umbra ships paused. Their weapons did not fire. Instead, 100 million viewers lit up channels with outrage. Whistleblowers leaked classified Umbra documents. Politicians scrambled. News anchors wept on camera. The Everkind had won not with lasers, but lullabies. Weeks passed. Umbra Corps filed a quiet retreat. Some of its commanders resigned. One defected entirely and arrived at the Everkind, asking to adopt a Tarsi orphan he had once hunted. Sarai watched it all unfold with tired eyes and an exhausted heart. And yet she smiled. The children were growing, not just in size, but in safety, in trust, in dreams. And as Kiro climbed into her lap that night, pulling a blanket over both their shoulders, he asked, "Will I get to choose who I become?" Sarai kissed his crown gently. "You already are." The rain fell heavier on the outskirts of Varelian City, where the industrial zones blurred into refugee outposts, and where the newest arrivals to Earth were quietly processed and cataloged like freight, a place of numbers, files, and forgotten faces. But in a makeshift dormitory of recycled shipping containers, something irreversible was beginning. Lieutenant Cole Anders stood outside Unit 3A with arms crossed, his military coat soaked through. His eyes weren't on the cameras or the scanners, but on the little Threnari boy nestled in a blanket beside the rusted door. The child's green skin had paled in the earth chill. His tentacle-like fingers clutched a human-made plushie in the shape of a dog. Inside, Administrator Livia Tan argued into her comlink. "I understand he's bonded, but Anders isn't cleared for off-world guardianship." "No, I'm not challenging Section 11A. I'm saying the regs were written before this kind of thing was possible." The audio bled out of the thin walls. The boy's ear fronds twitched. He looked up as Cole knelt beside him. "Hey, bud," Cole said softly. "You hone in there?" The child blinked, pupils expanding. His voice was barely audible. "You came back." Cole swallowed. That shouldn't have cut him the way it did. Inside, the comlink clicked off. Livia emerged, her expression tight. "2 more weeks, Cole? That's the most I could buy you. They'll start relocation after that." "That's not enough time," Cole said. "Then make it enough," she said. A word of what had happened in the desert had spread. Not officially, not in the reports, but in whispers. In glances traded across mess halls and orbital stations. The humans who adopted. The Xeno children who chose them. Social worker on Mars who took in a Nuvan girl whose voice could fracture glass. Maintenance tech in Kenya raising 3 Vrelids with ink paint scales. None of it made sense under galactic law. And yet, humanity kept choosing. The Council didn't like it. But Earth wasn't part of the Council. Not yet. At the Institute for Interstellar Anthropology in Paris, Dr. Halima Okoro finished her 3rd paper on the phenomenon, cross-species emotional anchoring in Homo sapiens. The term the press had picked up was simpler, the choosing, and in the Galactic Midstream Broadcast Network, a young reporter from Tau Ceti aired a controversial documentary titled The Kindness That Scares Us. Viewership shattered records. Meanwhile, deep in the orbital refugee arc, known as Ganymede Outpost Theta, Another choice was unfolding. Private Ilya Vasquez wasn't supposed to be there. She had come to deliver a crate of recycled protein blocks, routine cargo duty. But when she passed the containment nursery for newly landed Xeno orphans, something made her pause. Through the glass, hundreds of children stared listlessly at flickering screens, eating their paste and awaiting whatever future might be decided for them. One pair of glowing blue eyes met hers. The child, barely a toddler in human terms, pressed his hands to the window. Vasquez felt her heart drop. She didn't even realize she had placed her palm against the glass until it warmed. Moments later, the child placed his forehead against the pane. "I choose this one," he mouthed. She didn't know the species. She didn't know the language. But the meaning was unmistakable. Within 72 hours, Vasquez had filed the first request for emergency custody ever attempted by a non-diplomatic personnel. It sparked a movement. Back on Earth, Cole faced his own deadline. The Threnari child, Noah, as he was now called, had flourished in small, startling ways. He drew pictures. He helped organize the tools in Cole's garage. He sat curled next to Cole during storms, eyes wide at Earth thunder. But they both knew it wouldn't last. One night, Noah asked, "Will I forget you if they take me?" Cole didn't answer. Instead, he built something. It wasn't much, just a small device with a red button and a light butt when Noah pressed it. A recorded voice whispered, "You are safe. You are chosen." The boy carried it everywhere. When the council officials arrived, they found the orphanage in disarray, not from chaos, but from love. The staff were no longer passive. They fought for time, for paperwork, for guardianship. More importantly, they fought for the children. A dozen soldiers showed up to testify. A Marine colonel offered to resign just to adopt, and a group of teachers from Tokyo pledged to create an interspecies school, regardless of funding. The council filed objections. Earth filed silence. Then, in an emergency session at the Interstellar Court, something unprecedented happened. A small Threnari boy stepped onto the floor, holding a stuffed dog, clutching Cole Anders' hand. And in clear, practiced galactic standard, he said, "I choose this one." The ruling shook the council. It wasn't just Earth anymore. Other planets began reevaluating their child protection policies. The movement spread like wildfire. Adoption centers opened in orbit around Jupiter. Commune on Venus took in 7 Jalari twins. An android collective on Luna offered AI-mediated foster services. The Xeno children stopped looking like war debris. They started looking like sons, daughters, family. Still across the stars, the phrase endured. "I choose this one." The snow hadn't touched the peaks of Mount Avernus in years. Climate regulation towers dotted the valley below, their hum a quiet presence against the silence of the frozen research base. This was where the Interstellar Council had hidden their last tribunal facility, a place meant to process violations quietly, far from media eyes. But the world had already changed. Inside the sterile hearing chamber, Cole Anders sat with Noah beside him, a human soldier and a Threnari child seated as equals before the tribunal. The council's lead arbitrator, a Rinthian with 4 glistening ocular ridges and the voice of dry stone, cleared its throat. Earth's actions represent a disruption of protocol. Species integration at the minor developmental stage is a deviation from norm. Cole interrupted, not with disrespect, but with quiet resolve. But maybe the norm needs changing. He didn't speak in grand rhetoric. He didn't invoke treaties or ancient codes. Instead, he slid a datapad forward. One image blinked to life. A Vrelid girl, nestled between human siblings, finger-painting stars. Another blink. Crayon boy reading storybooks beside his foster mother in a solar park. Another. Every photo was a bond. A choosing. Noah leaned forward, small voice trembling but audible. "They made room for us." Silence held the tribunal like gravity, unbreakable, until it shifted. The Rinthian tapped the table. "Deliberations are suspended pending council vote. You may leave." Cole exhaled. Not a win, but not a loss either. By the time they reached Earth again, everything had changed. The Galactic Compact had not issued formal recognition, but the floodgates had opened. Across dozens of systems, beings were doing the one thing that couldn't be regulated: caring. From mining colonies in the asteroid belt to floating algae farms on Europa, humans were becoming something no one had expected, the species that stayed. It wasn't just about war anymore. It wasn't about power. It was about presence. Humanity showed up for the lost, the stranded, the unwanted, and in doing so, became something feared and revered. Guardians. In the dusty township of Ashkanal on Mars, an exobiologist named Priya Jean built the first open species daycare. It smelled like ozone and milk. It ran on volunteer hours and repurposed bots. She called it the First Circle, the idea that one safe place could ripple out across worlds. Elsewhere, a freighter captain with one arm and a foul mouth was teaching a nest of shy Murdani hatchlings how to swear in 6 Terran dialects. They clung to his legs when he boarded and sang when he returned. And far above them all, in the halo of a station orbiting Neptune, an AI called Moira downloaded every known language of orphaned Xeno refugees and began designing bedtime stories in each. None of this was ordered. None of it coordinated. But it was happening, relentlessly, quietly, everywhere. But not everyone welcomed it. In the shadows of Sector Kappa 19, where smugglers and warlords still held sway, word spread. Humans are rewriting the rules. Some species viewed this with awe, others with fear. One faction, the Purity Accord of Vurex Prime, called for sanctions, interventionism through sentiment, they warned. Emotional imperialism. The term became a political firestorm. Diplomats argued, analysts debated, but one fact couldn't be erased. Adopted Xeno children were thriving under human care. And then, the incident at Sci-Fi Red Outpost changed everything. Sci-Fi Red had always been a volatile station. Perched near a resource corridor, it was equal parts trade hub and black market port. When a routine check found unauthorized children aboard a merchant vessel, local enforcers seized them 3 Jalari infants and 1 half-bonded UAVon. The crew protested. Earth volunteers on board intervened. The chaos, the station's security AI was damaged. Fire broke out. 2 volunteers died protecting the children. The footage went viral in under a day. What should have been a tragedy became a rallying cry. Cole saw it unfold from a hospital recovery ward. His ribs had been shattered in a shuttle crash weeks before. But when he saw the images of the volunteers shielding the Xeno children with their bodies, something inside him hardened, not with bitterness, but resolve. The choosing had become more than a phenomenon. It was a movement. Earth's leadership, fragmented though it was, did something no one expected. They didn't retaliate. They built a ship, a long-haul diplomatic vessel. Sleek, black, trimmed in gold. Designed not for conquest, but for connection. They called it the Hearth, its mission. To deliver supplies, education, and emotional support to any child of any species left behind by the galactic machine. The Hearth carried no weapons. Just classrooms, counselors, and enough food to feed 1,000 children. Its logo was simple, a stylized hand reaching out to a smaller one. When the Hearth launched, the galaxy didn't quite know what to make of it, but the children did. They lined up at ports. They clung to rails. They whispered in dozens of tongues. I choose this one. The phrase had crossed borders, species, and transmission bands. I choose this one. It was more than sentiment now. It was a doctrine coded into recruitment ads for social services. Printed in faded ink on posters stapled to lunar steel, whispered between children in the dark corners of overcrowded refugee ships. And Earth, once a fractured world scarred by centuries of conflict, was becoming a sanctuary. But sanctuaries don't last without guardians. Inside the steel shell of Beacon Station Omega, Earth's farthest refugee processing hub, orbiting Proxima Centauri B, Commander Maria Holt stood at the viewport overlooking an arrival convoy. The ships drifting in were nothing like the sleek lines of galactic transports. These were jagged, scorched, and desperate. Civilian vessels converted from mining rigs, diplomatic wreckage repurposed with patches of homeworld cloth. Holt's second in command, Lieutenant Reese Malik, stepped beside her. Third wave this week, he said, scanning the incoming logs. Mostly Ferecki, some Dalari survivors from the Geminide fire line. One flagged as high profile, Jalari Royala class. Myria didn't flinch. Any children? Dozens. One manifest lists 97 unaccompanied juveniles. She nodded. Prep quarantine. Double up on field social workers. Make sure the nursery walls are painted. Warm tones this time. You still believe colors matter? I believe everything matters. Down in Bay 4, a Ferecki girl emerged first from the docking tunnel. Her body shimmered like moonstone, bioluminescent streaks dimmed by malnutrition. She wore no shoes, just scraps of woven fiber bound around her feet. Across the bay, a young human man in civilian uniform knelt to greet her, arms outstretched, unsure if she'd understand the gesture. She tilted her head, then stepped forward. One hand, barely the size of his palm, reached out and touched the badge on his chest. It glowed faintly beneath her fingers. I choose home, she whispered in broken Terran. Meanwhile, back on Earth, the term galactic orphanage had taken on new meaning. No longer a place, now a program, a network, a way of life. In New Kinshasa, an entire skyscraper had been converted into a multi-species dormitory. Children from 14 different systems shared lessons in music, biology, and Terran languages. A female Durvan with silicon spines taught xenolinguistics. A Terran neurologist used holoprojection stories to bridge species with nonverbal cognition. Outside, protesters still marched. Not everyone saw the children as innocent. Don't bring their wars here, the signs read. Earth for Earthlings. But for every marcher, there was someone like Maya Tran, a single mother who left her engineering post on Mars to adopt a Talari child who spoke only in light pulses. She built a device that translated those pulses into music. For every protester, there was a Colonel Kim, who offered her pension to fund an off-world trauma center for war-displaced youth. In the halls of the Interstellar Council, Earth's example became a mirror the other species couldn't look away from. The Crocian, once brutal slavers, quietly passed a referendum opening their territories to foster outposts. The Janid hive-minded scholars known for strict isolationism sent delegates to Earth not to study but to learn parenting. And when a planet named Vigaranine collapsed under civil war, its children were not turned away at checkpoints. They were welcomed. Some into homes, some into hearts, some into both. Lieutenant Colanders stood before the UA on Interstellar Assembly, now dubbed the New Kin Table, holding Noah's hand. Years had passed since the first choosing. Noah was taller now, spoke 5 languages, had his own opinions. He was still Threnary, still alien. But he laughed like coal, argued like coal. And when the microphone flickered on and the delegates leaned forward, Noah didn't hesitate. My species ran from yours once, he said, voice steady. We thought humans destroyed. But what I found was someone who stayed. He turned, gripping Cole's wrist tightly. You didn't save me. You made me real. Silence held the room. Then the android mediator's voice broke through, metallic and gentle. Statement received. Motion carried. From the mining moons of Juno to the floating cities of Kepler-1 6c, humanity's kindness became myth. A species that adopted others not for power or politics or penance, but for love. And still, the words endured, passed from child to child, world to world, heart to heart. I choose this one. And somewhere maybe in a corner of the stars, not yet mapped, not yet charted another, child reached out, not for safety, but for family. The stars had changed. Not in composition, they still burned hydrogen and spun gravity wells like before, but in meaning. In old maps, star systems were cataloged in cold sequences of letters and numbers. Now, a growing number bore different names in human tongue. Havenlight, New Mercy, Choir Reach, names given not by astronomers, by children. Orphans once scattered, now adopted, now anchored. Humanity hadn't meant to lead, but it had. And others had followed. The Galactic Kin Accord was signed on Titan Station, beneath the golden haze of Saturn's clouds. It had taken years, countless votes, hundreds of rewritten clauses, but at last, 36 species had ratified a shared agreement to prioritize child welfare across interstellar borders. No child, regardless of form or origin, would remain stateless or unclaimed. Earth was given no throne, no title. But the others called it something all the same. The Hearth World, the place where lost things were found. On a quiet edge of the Andromeda Fold, a small agricultural colony bloomed under twin suns. No monuments, no banners, just fields, schools, and laughter. A child named Tavi, of the insectoid Narelli, sprinted across a dusty field, chasing a kite shaped like a Terran whale. Her mother, a Brazilian scientist, cheered her on from a shaded bench. Beside a towering Garnethy father who once served in their navy, behind them, carved into a simple stone plaque. We do not inherit the stars. We raise them. In the corridors of Sol Refuge Command, Commander Maria Holt reviewed the newest census packet. Total placements this cycle? She asked, sipping her tea. 7,432, Malik replied, scrolling through the holosheet. Mostly interspecies, some dual adoptions, a few homeworld returns, 0 rejections. Miria set down her cup. 0. Not one child refused placement. Every single one chose someone. She leaned back, eyes to the ceiling. We're not the same species we were. No, Malik said. We're better, far above, in a slow-turning orbital school hub named the Nest. A classroom of mixed-origin students recited an old Terran story. A young teacher with cybernetic limbs asked, "Who remembers where the phrase started?" Tiny voices shouted, "Earth, Cole Anders." "A threnary boy and a plush dog?" She smiled. "And what did he say?" They answered in unison, species-tuned voices harmonizing. "I choose this one." Cole Anders never asked for a statue. But one stood in New Geneva, beneath the Interstellar Adoption Directorate. It wasn't grand, just life-size. Him, in uniform, crouched low with open arms, and Noah running toward him, stuffed dog in one hand. The base bore only 4 words. Someone stayed. I chose. And Noah, he grew up. He studied galactic law, advocated for displaced children on council floors. Eventually, he returned to Threnari Spacenaut to reclaim a home, but to offer others what he had once been given. A chance, a choice, a family. The galaxy never grew quiet. New wars sparked. Old hatreds lingered. Not everyone approved of the orphanage, but across countless light years, something new had rooted itself in the soil of civilization. The belief that species were not barriers, that empathy could cross any stars, that a single human act could echo through generations. And if you walk the corridors of any refugee station now, listen closely, you might hear it. A soft voice, frightened but brave, whispering through tears. I choose this one. When they do, a human hand is always waiting.